Well, thank you so much for coming, everyone. We are kind of at full cap, which is awesome, and we are at the beautiful Lawson Flats. So thank you so much for the Lawson staff. Honestly, you guys have been amazing. But before we kick off the night and we introduce everyone and get into the panel discussion and really breaking down AI, which I know is exactly why you guys are all here, we'd love to pay our respects to the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and we pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And yeah, my name is Jasu. I'm your host for this evening. I'm one of the co-founders at Clear AI, and we want to really thank the City of Perth for being a major sponsor and partner to this event. When I spoke to the team at City of Perth late last year, I think AI had, it was accelerating, developing, and then over Christmas, it just like blew up, and now we're just at this really like full pelt speed heading towards the future in which we live in today. So yeah, we've got heaps to break down tonight. But before we get into the expert panel discussion, just some housekeeping. If you would like to go to the bathroom, it's just out the door, at the stairs, turn right, don't go up the stairs, and then you'll find your way. And if you would like some water or anything, the bar, it's all good. But we will have kick-ons afterwards. Don't worry. We're going to be networking. There's lots of canapes. We'll get through it all. Okay, awesome. So I think I might get each panel speaker to introduce themselves. So we'll start off with Miriam. Tell us about yourself. And just to give everyone some context, Miriam is currently the Chief Technology Officer at City of Stirling, but she has very extensive background in being a technologist and, an emerging tech expert. What else would you like to add? What's your favorite meme?
I cannot tell you my favorite meme. It's not professional, but not for the podcast. Hi everyone. I think I represent that side of our society that doesn't, we're not super nerds on AI. We didn't know much before GPT or ChatGPT. We knew that it existed, but we were not playing with it. And suddenly exponential IT is coming, and then what you're referring to, exponential AI is coming, and we're just grappling with all the opportunities and how to implement it for the betterment of the community, but without creating havoc in the community. So I work for local government, so servicing society is, it's what I get up for every morning, but also society is very risk averse, and there is a lot of fear. So it's about how to play that in a very nice balance, how to give productivity, but also just, being very conscious of what the public might be saying.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks, Miriam. We'll move on to Alex. Alex is currently the director at Innovation Data Hub.
Data Science Innovation Hub.
Data Science Innovation Hub. I knew that. And recently you've been appointed as one of the inaugural members to the WA AI Advisory Board. So congratulations. And you do many other things, so please tell us.
Thank you. So WADSI, the WA Data Science Innovation Hub, our role is to help build a strong data science and AI ecosystem in WA. So we're sort of funded by government and Curtin University, and we're based at Curtin University. And so I go out and talk to people about AI, businesses about AI, and government about AI, about how they can use it, what are the kinds of things that we can do. Get them all excited about it, and then they say, well, where can we, go to find someone to do these things? And so then we also focus on the students, ensuring that we've got this big supply of data science students coming through who are skilled in these areas, and also supporting the local businesses and startups involved in data science and AI, just like Clear AI. So it's a really fun role. We're trying to stimulate the demand for data science and AI, but also stimulating the supply for it. The other thing that I do is I chair something called the Curtin AI and Research Group, which is focused on helping researchers understand how they can use AI to accelerate research. There's all kinds of cool research experiments that you couldn't even do without AI. All of a sudden, you can analyse 300 million newspaper articles for economic sentiment. You couldn't do that a few years ago. It just wouldn't have been possible. So it opens up a new world for researchers. And with the AI Advisory Board, there's amazing use cases for AI in state government, because state government has to interface with, every person in Western Australia. And just ensuring that the ways that we use AI in state government are done in a responsible way, and that data protections are observed. But I think there's a lot of areas for innovation, so it's an exciting time. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Alex. This is not a coincidence. We have two Joshes on the panel, and we've shoved them down the end there. But we've got Josh Morley, and he's Global Head of AI and Data at Acotis, amongst many other hats. So please introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm trying to consolidate them down to, hopefully by July 1 role. At the moment, I've got 6 across Acotis, the parent group, and another organisation within the group. But my primary day job is the Global Head of AI Data and Analytics at Acotis, which is a large technology engineering consultancy. We've got about 50,000 people around the world. There's about 1,200 in my practice. So very broad. I'm not going to pretend that my day-to-day life is as strategic or structured as people probably imagine. It's very reactive. But I think that also testifies to the nature and the pace of progression that we're experiencing at the moment. So everything from coming up with a series of courses, we call the AI Academy. We've now trained 16,000 people, 500 executives in 12 countries, to actually architecting agentic AI solutions. So we've kind of created the role so that I have 0 direct reports. All the VPs report directly to their country CEO and then dotted line to me, so that we can keep me off administrative timesheets and expenses. And leverage the knowledge that I've got, which is about 12 years of very deep AI knowledge.
Awesome. Thanks, Josh. And Josh Phillips down the end is a fellow co-founder at Clear AI, and I didn't really talk about what we did, so Josh, over to you.
Great. Well, I'm co-founder of Clear AI, and what we do is we work particularly with people around AI. So while the technology is important, and we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the technology, we really believe that what people do with the technology is what really matters. And so we help organizations to learn AI, to adopt it, to change their practices so that they get the very most out of AI that is possible. And what we're seeing is that it takes a different way of working to adopt AI. You can't just expect to work in exactly the same way as you used to do if you want results using AI. And the results you get if you change your practices are really astonishing. And so that's the type of work that we do. We work with organizations, typically small, medium size, and also local governments and some other governments as well.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks. We should get into this, but before we kick off, I forgot to mention, did everyone fill out the pre-event survey? If you didn't, then let me tell you why you should, because there's a door prize. So if you do want to enter and be in the running for the door prize, which is 1 week free here at Lawson Flats. So basically you get to be a member for a week without actually being a member. As a Lawson Flats member, I'd say it's 100% worth it. There's a gym, a sauna. You can book meeting rooms for free for a couple of hours a day. The staff here are amazing. The food is beautiful. So it's definitely worth it. And yeah, you can like have client meetings here, and people always come and they're like, this is a beautiful place. And I'm like, I know, I work here. So if you'd, now for the Lawson Flat members who already do have membership, if you do get pulled out for the door prize, you actually get 1 hour free AI strategy consulting with us at Clear AI, and basically we can help figure out how you can do AI adoption or AI solutions for your organization or business. So we will do that right at the end of the night. So you still have time to do the survey. That's the QR code, but it's also around. So don't worry, we're going to jump straight into it. So I thought we could just dive in, because as you can see, we've got a whole range of perspectives in the room. And I'm not going to lie, I'm an art student. So like when it comes to computer science, data, tech, I'm like, okay, speak to me plainly. So that's what this panel is going to do. We're going to kind of break it down for everybody. So to kind of kick us off, Alex, what is AI? What can it do and what can't it do?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm still thinking about that myself. Josh, do you mind holding my beer?
Yeah, no problem.
I need my hands.
Hold my beer, he says.
Hold my beer. So I have answered this question, I don't know, about 50 times in my current role, and I'm always trying to think of a better way to explain AI to people. And so it helps to understand normal computer programming. And the best analogy I can give you is following a recipe to bake a cake. Right, so if you want to, let's say you want to cook a cake, you get a recipe, and it will list out all of the ingredients, and then it will give you a set of procedures. Add 1 cup of flour, add 1 cup of water, add an egg, mix and stir. And it's very, dictated. And so normal programming, the way that we've programmed computers for 50 years, is very much like that. Follows a very strict sort of set ordering. These are the things I need, and this is exactly what must happen. And if something goes wrong, or if something's not in the place that you expect it to be, or some data's missing, the whole thing falls in a heap and it doesn't work. And so that is sort of how we do traditional programming. It works very well when you need to add up numbers very quickly or multiply numbers very quickly, but it doesn't work great when your data is imperfect. And so the way that AI works, it's a different way of running software on a computer. And it's inspired by the way that our minds work with something called a neural network. And so the way that a neural network works, so I'll use the word neural network and AI interchangeably. This is what an AI is. It's a biologically inspired network of connections, like a human brain. Is you start with a kind of a blank slate, and you give the AI 1 cake recipe, and then another cake recipe, and then another one, and another one, and you give it hundreds of recipes. And what the AI will do is it will eventually understand what it is that is the essence of a cake. It's that ratio between flour, water, eggs, and sugar. And you don't have to tell it that. It will eventually figure it out. And what's interesting about that is it's very similar to how humans learn. So if you cook enough cakes yourself from following a recipe, eventually you'll understand, oh, okay, this is what I need to add, and this is the consistency of the batter that I need. And you'll understand I'll need a bit more water here or a bit more flour there, because you understand, the vibe of the cake, what it is that makes a cake a cake. And so an AI starts to learn like that. And that's really, really useful in the real world. Because when you program something like that, or when you train an AI like this, it allows it to be really robust to errors and noisy data. And in the real world, there's errors and noisy data everywhere. But as humans, we can see past that all the time. One of the earliest use cases for AI was simply recognizing human handwriting. Because if I draw the numeral 8 and you draw it, it's going to be different. And if someone else draws it, it's going to be different again. But it's all approximately the same. But that's very difficult to program in using traditional programming. But if you train a neural network using these examples that I provided, by giving it a whole lot of examples and letting it understand what it is that makes up a cake or what it is that makes up a numeral 8, then it's able to recognize these things. So once you have that, AI starts to be able to process information in a way somewhat similar to how humans do. And that is really, really useful because it allows us to now start to use computers for tasks that previously computers hadn't been capable of. Yeah, that's what AI is, I reckon.
Awesome. Great. So, Alex, can AI think in that sense?
Yeah, so can a submarine swim is sort of my response to that. I think, well,
Exactly.
yeah, can a submarine swim is an interesting question because, well, maybe it can't, but it can get from point A to point B under the water. And so does AI work in exactly the same way as the human mind? No, I don't think it does. There's like an overlap. There are some parts of a large language model, that's another term for AI, that absolutely does work in a similar fashion to the human brain. I can make every single person here act like an AI. One of the ways that AI has worked is by predicting the next token in a sentence, the next word in a sentence. Now, part of your brain works exactly like that. And I can make a word pop into your head and you won't even be able to help it. It'll just be there. Mary had a little. Right, so the word lamb, hopefully, would have popped into most of your heads. And the reason...
99% confidence.
The reason the word lamb popped into your head is because your training data, all of the experience of your life, has this nursery rhyme as something that's very common in our society, something you've been exposed to multiple times. And so this pattern of words is something that you sort of implicitly memorized without even realizing it. So there's a real overlap between the way that AI thinks and humans think, and it's a very active research area. And I think it's actually super interesting. I was talking to James, about this before, who's a behavioural psychologist, that it's actually really interesting to use AI as a mirror for helping us to understand the limitations of human cognition and where human cognition is really special. Because we really don't even have a great understanding of human intelligence yet. So, yeah.
Great. Anybody else want to add to that? What can AI do and what can't it do? Awkward silence.
Yeah, it's changing all the time. In practical terms, the capabilities of AI are changing all the time. I'm sure you've all experienced this in that GPT 3.5, when it came out, it was really basic compared to what we can see today. I give this example, and it's borrowed from Ethan Mollick, where if you ask an AI to write a poem in the style of Jared Manley Hopkins, Shakespeare, so on and so forth, it's very, very good at that. Whereas if you ask it to write an 11-word poem, it's very good at writing 12-word, 13-word, and 10-word poems, and then telling you that that's an 11-word poem. And that's an example of something that is changing, that we expect the technology and even the reasoning models, which are out now, can succeed relatively frequently with that task. But it's something which definitely AI was not good at, and it can now do. And that we see these examples all the time where AI is not good at something, but then a lot of work, a lot of effort goes into improving that area of the AI's capabilities.
So there's a really good way to think about this in terms of what AI can't do. If you think about particularly those first AIs like ChatGPT 3.5, they're trained on text. So it's like a human who has lived in a wooden hut in the middle of the forest, never spoken to anyone, never heard anyone speak, but is able to read and has read 1 million books and is able to communicate with you by letter. But they never even heard English language or any language. And so if you ask a AI to write you a poem, its sense of prosody and rhyme will be awful because it doesn't know what language sounds like. And the first AIs even didn't have vision. They didn't have any sense of what the world looked like. So these, we call these modalities. So we have a text modality, we have audio modality where the AI understands what the world sounds like and what people sound like. Vision modalities, which allow the AI to understand what a picture looks like and describe that in text. But there are other modalities as well, and one of the biggest ones that humans have is interaction with the real world. One of the hardest things for a robot to do, and is just to simply pick up a glass with its claw and not crush that glass. And one of the safest jobs in the world, I think, is that of a domestic cleaner. Because I'm serious, because that requires a robot to have an AI that is capable of reasoning about things around it and how to interact with those things. And we don't train AIs like that. And robotics, you see these really clumsy physical robots that they seem to be quite far behind where AI is. And we always thought in the 1950s AI was going to be these robots walking around, sweeping our kitchen and doing these tasks. But it's the opposite. It's poets and artists and scientists who are now concerned, whereas you don't see this mass adoption of AI in manufacturing or areas that require a lot of physical manipulation. That's a really hard thing to do and involves a lot of data of interacting with the real world.
So that's really interesting. Okay, so basically, new business plan, Josh. We're now clean AI. We're going to move into cleaning. That's what I'm hearing. So when we're talking about safe jobs, like the first question people always ask me, I'm sure we all get it, is AI going to take my job? Is it going to replace my job? What do you guys think?
I'm happy to jump in this one because I try to spend a lot of time on this. There is a great capacity for AI to heavily augment and take away. If you think about the Industrial Revolution, the introduction of the steam engine, the manufacturing line, these were taking all of the manually laborious tasks, moving things from place A to B to then have the equipment surrounding it and continue to construct something. The early stages of AI that we're in at the moment are alleviating a lot of the intellectually laborious tasks. So things that are highly repetitive, that don't necessarily require a large degree of expertise, knowledge, or grounding in a broader understanding of maybe organizational vision or strategy, whatever it is. So AI is exceptionally good at taking taking minutes in a meeting or drafting up an email. There's quite a few things that will be demoed later today. But the things that it really lacks and where a lot of the jobs are safe is when it requires a heavy degree of intercommunication, or interpersonal communication, and emotional intelligence. So that is something that is incredibly hard to replace, even though, and I know there are a couple of people in the crowd being like, but Josh, we've seen the stats, the papers, the broad AI models actually outperform the average human in emotional intelligence. But it doesn't mean that it's able to reflect or act with that capacity. Being fired over an email or being broken up over a text is probably a comparable example. It takes out that connection side. So we're doing, the group that owns Zacodis is the Adecco Group. I think it's the largest recruitment firm in the world. We place, I think, tens of millions of people a year. And they're heavily looking at what place will AI play in the recruitment process. But all of the process is about the heavy grunt work, removing all the scheduling for the calendars to make sure that we create as much time and the recruiters can spend as much time doing that interpersonal communication and connection to understand what is the value, what is the drive of this person, where can I place them that they're going to be fulfilled. So it's all the human components. And that's why I think when it comes to what jobs will be safe, what jobs will go, there will be a great degree of change. But I encourage a lot of the people that we put through our executive training course to rethink of roles in terms of a composition of different skills and tasks. So there have been very few roles in human histories that have been entirely replaced by technology. A street lantern lighter is an example of a role that was completely replaced. A lot of the other roles, which are comprised of skills and tasks, will adapt over time. And AI will be the same. It will take away a lot of, I'm glad, taking minutes, taking notes, so that when I'm in meetings with people, I can focus on the discussion and I don't have to worry about writing down things for me to remember or follow up on later. So I advocate for, and I do think the technology supports, that AI will enable people to perform to a far higher level of productivity. And then we kind of get into the philosophical of, well, do humans exist for productivity? And I think that's a valid question. But
and we're not opening that can of worms yet. So, I mean, yeah, that's a really great point. And the will AI replace jobs is kind of like part of the hype. It's kind of part of the noise. So this whole event is called Cutting Through the Hype, right? So I actually want to ask each and every one of you, what is the best and worst AI hype / news right now? Miriam?
I like the...
I'm on the community.
City of Stirling residents, beware.
and so am I. Look, coming for governments, that's the worst hype. Or it might be true, but everything is listening. All the data is being collected, and they're here to take over. So that is just something that is even the councillors are asking us on a daily basis. What are we using EVs? What are they doing with the data? Who's using it in what manner? That God knows. But it's a risk-based approach. Would the Chinese government ever want to, come and attack the city of Estelin? We don't know. Like, we're important, Chantel, we're important, but I'm not sure to what degree. So that's one of the hypes that we're trying to...
De-hype.
Yeah, de-hype. And the other one is going to take our jobs. I'm pretty sure that at some point something will take some of the jobs, like you said, very well said. Here now, no. In the next 5 years, absolutely no. And I see it every day, and you'll see it every day. So AI can do fantastic things. The world of opportunities is amazing. The commercialization of some parts, no, and that's why I haven't arrived to our door. But then you have people that are grappling with the basics. They cannot pronounce ChatGPT or spell it or do a prompt or what it is. So you have a whole range of things in there. So we'll see what.
But there's no shame. You all got to start somewhere, right? With ChatGPT.
Absolutely. You just have to tinker and play and be curious.
Exactly.
That's all.
Thanks. Best and worst hype.
The thing that I think is underhyped but is incredibly awesome is there's two things. The first is a kind of a research outcome that hasn't really manifested in a product yet, but I think will soon. So to understand this, when you use something like ChatGPT, it's like talking to someone in Groundhog Day. Like, imagine if I came up to you and had a conversation with you and then you walked away and then I came back, or we came back together and talked, and I had no idea about what you had said previously. That is how AI sort of works a lot of the time now. When you train an AI, you spend millions of dollars, huge number of computing data centers and graphics cards, enormous amount of data. And once that training run is finished, it can take months, the brain is sort of frozen in time. And so when you interact with it, the AI has a short-term memory. We call it the context. And you can talk to it and it will refer to things in the context. But as soon as that conversation is over, it's all of that it just disappears. And it doesn't reinforce what you have learnt or what you've talked about back into its long-term memory. And there are sort of hacks, there are ways around this. You can sort of make notes about your previous conversations. That's what ChatGPT does. They call it memory, but it's really just a few notes about, previous things you've said. It doesn't update itself. It doesn't learn from its interactions. But there is a new architecture for AI which sort of tries to mimic the way that human memory works a bit more. So if we have a conversation, perhaps we come up with some ideas, I learn things about you, you learn things about me, and then I commit these things to long-term memory. And that informs who I am and how I talk in my next conversation. And of course, we all change over time. That's an essential component of being human. And so AI at the moment does not do that. But the facility to have that in AI would be super exciting. And there's been, from Google, a research paper that shows how this might work. It's called Triton, for those who are interested, Triton architecture. And I think that will be really interesting because that gives us a more, an AI that, is able to start to understand things. It's not just frozen in time. The biggest bad news hype, I don't know. Obviously everyone wants to talk about DeepSeek R1, and it is amazing. And the data issues are obviously very scary. But I'd also warn you against giving your data to Optus or Medibank.
Facebook.
Yeah, or Facebook. The idea of how you own your data and data privacy. I talk to my kids, and the concept of data privacy to them is just like, I don't know. I just share my stuff on, wherever, and they don't understand that. Whereas I grew up in a generation where that was considered a very important thing. So it gets harder for me to communicate to people what, what's the risk, for instance, of using R1 via a Chinese website. And certainly, when you're talking about using these things within government, that absolutely matters, or within enterprise, that absolutely matters. But it's getting more and more difficult to communicate because it's just complicated. So, yeah.
Well, we're seeing that with TikTok as well,
Yeah.
right? Like
it's exactly
it's all playing out. So then we kind
TikTok's fine, Meta's worse.
Meta's worse.
Meta is so much worse. Does anyone have a Thread account?
No.
So you actually assigned access to your biometric profile. And the only way that you can revoke that is deleting your Instagram.
Yeah. So that's actually so you're kind of touching now on data sovereignty, which will 100%, we will 100% visit that later, and maybe have another event at Lawson Flats where we do that. But we are kind of talking to, I guess, a group of people who are interested in AI adoption, whether that be at an individual level or a kind of more scalable enterprise level. And really, we're here to kind of break down AI adoption for you, because a lot of people think does it mean I have to do a massive data uplift? Does it mean I have to do a massive overhaul of everything? Some cases, yes. And that's why we're here, at Clear AI, and all these people here, we do specialize in kind of providing that practical advice. But, a lot of it is actually now that ChatGPT and other platforms have basically democratized artificial intelligence, the barriers to entry are very low. So I guess I wanted to chat then about what are the fundamentals that business leaders and organizational leaders need to know in order to get adoption right, AI adoption right. And maybe Josh Morley, I'll hand this to you to start.
I think I generally talk about it from 4 pillars to realize value from AI. The technology is one of them, so it's a quarter. And I've seen a lot of failure from large organizations, government departments, universities, where they'll Copilot, M365 Copilot as an example, they roll it out, they provide it to their users. Fantastic tool, great productivity potential, and then it's either not used or they're not realizing value, so they decide to roll it back out. Because the technology is only one component. The second is the governance, risk management, and the alignment of the AI tool with your overall business strategy. I know that governance and strategy were typically kind of snooze terms, and people would start to dial out. But I think there's really been a maturity uplift and a reframing of what governance and strategy is in the digital realm recently, so that it's a lot more lean, it's a lot more adaptable, and it's really there as, I think it's Trent Bartlett, the fellow of the Australian Institute of Company Directors, phrased it incredibly well. Governance is the operating parameters that I can freely move within to be successful. And I'm seeing a lot more companies approach it from that perspective rather than considering it red tape. So governance, risk management, and strategy is one. The change management and the adoption, so engaging with the people, understanding what are the use cases, where are you realizing value, how can we communicate that more broadly to other people, how can we communicate, provide a center of excellence, what are the things that are working, and how can we help more people realize that this is valuable. And then that comes through training, upskilling and reskilling, which is the final pillar. Because if you push it out but people don't understand, there is very understandably a lot of reticence because people don't want to do harm. We've heard a lot about the ability, the very real ability, to re-marginalise historically marginalised or discriminated against groups with AI, because those biases are built into the foundation models. And while there's a lot of post-training exercises done by the large organisations, the reality is, and we tried this, if you feed a whole bunch of CVs in to ChatGPT as a base example, and say, give me the top 5 candidates for a software architect in Perth, Western Australia, they will all be middle-aged white men, because of the biases that is built in over decades. So without an understanding, people are very understandably cautious to embrace this technology. So giving them a baseline training and understanding, and instead of saying, give me the top 5, you can say, these are the core principles, or these are the valuable skill sets that I'm looking for, or areas of expertise. Can you provide me with a list of candidates that do have those? It reframes it, and immediately you can realise value without reintroducing that marginalisation and discrimination.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think that when it comes to people and the training side of things, one of the essential skills that we try and integrate with our training is curiosity. Is that actually, unlike other programs, like I remember when I was learning to use Excel, you can follow the book. Here's what you do this, then you do this, much like the programming language that Alex was talking about earlier. But with AI, while there are rules, I think they're probably more broadly principles, things that you apply, but it means that you may not get the result that you're looking for on the first go. Josh just gave an excellent example of how what you say to the AI, the prompt, makes a difference on the outcome. And so the only way that you can really develop that understanding, in my experience, is curiosity and experience itself. And I was recently looking into this in terms of how do you best tell when AI is right, when it's wrong? So if I were to take those CVs and drop them in and tell me top 5 candidates, I know next to nothing about hiring, best practice, diversity, etc. So that's not a good test for me to build my skills in AI. What I do know about is a whole range of other things related to my career experience and perhaps even in my personal life, that if I start using AI in those ways, I'll be able to tell, oh yeah, it's wrong there, so I should prompt it differently here. Or yeah, that's right, that gave me exactly the result that I'm looking for. And so AI is a really different kind of beast when it comes to training people, and training them with that curiosity and the mindset of experimentation is really important for being able to get better and better results, especially as the capabilities keep changing, because you may be able to get one result through 3 steps today, but then tomorrow that could be just a single prompt.
Yeah, awesome. Because I think we've touched on like the people element, the human element, right? Like it's governance, it's risk, it's strategy, but it's also curiosity, it's familiarization, it's kind of socializing with AI in some ways. So then is culture a huge factor in AI adoption? And Miriam, I want to ask this to you. Do you think culture is a big thing, and how do you get it right?
Culture is everything. How do you get it right? I don't know. We're trying. We've done a multiple approach as City of Stirling. So we started with the risk-based approach. So that was a few weeks after I joined the city. Somebody said that I should do a presentation on AI, and because everybody was talking about ChatGPT, it's like, okay, here we are. I don't know anything about AI. And then I asked ChatGPT to give me a very good, truly a very good PowerPoint for me to introduce. But what it was me, and nothing could have done that, is the fact that I presented that as our biggest risk is not bias, ethical use, cybersecurity, data protection, which it is. Our biggest risk is not to adopt it. Our biggest risk is just to wait to adopt it, to see how other local governments, other state government, other massive enterprises are using it, and then we come behind 5 years. Like that's a wealth of missed opportunities. This is an absolute amazing technology that we should be, yes, controlling, yes, managing, yes, learning about it, but we need to be curious, and then we need to apply it in the correct field, in the correct time. And it's just funny because AI in the city of Stirling has been there for a long, long time, right? So we have CCTV cameras and we have infringements, things that we do with data, and it's been there. It's just nobody talks about it. The same that all of you are using AI with your smartphones. So all of you are very adept at using AI all the time, and somebody else that is very, very clever has just, facilitated that to you. So it's embedded AI, right? It's AI functionality in whatever device that you're using today. So I think that set up the tone. And then we started doing, like a strategic intent. And then we brought more people. Not just executives, it was more people. What is our strategic intent? Where do we want to go? So it's about creating that culture. So it goes from, the inner circle to a circle that is a little bit bigger. People from different degrees. It doesn't have to be senior managers or service leads. It can be a ranger. So we ask that type of people, what is it that you would like to see and what is it that you wouldn't like to see? And then we do, with the change managers, we socialize these things. So we have good governance forums where we're starting to talk to the bias, the ethics, the cybersecurity problems. So everybody's very mindful, and we tell them this is the do's, this is the don'ts. Very, very, very quick, very 5 bullet points. It doesn't have to be a masterclass on anything. And then we got to the practical use of this is how you use Copilot, the free version. This is how you prompt, and we've got Scott here. So he's done a lot of, that detailed background, face-to-face type of approach where we're creating a culture and we're just making it fun. And we're always repeating. We had a session with you, 6 hours. It was the most fun ever. And there were a lot of people very reticent to it. They're like, oh, what are they going to teach me? Well, a whole new world of opportunities. You thought that you knew things. You know how to apply it in your mind, but you don't know the many other thousands of examples of things that, we can elevate productivity. And it's not just you, it's your whole team. So we had people from all over the city, very different backgrounds, technical or not. But what was the common point, it was curiosity. So we were all very curious about technology and how we can help others. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's everything.
Yeah, you're bringing everyone along for the ride, right?
And the way that we do it is, is a proof of concept. So we start very small, and we just, and then we go to a pilot, and then we just implode or explode. But it's absolutely
yeah, of course.
Too much energy. Yeah.
Of course. And I mean, I love that. It's definitely about culture, because at the end of the day, like how we say it at Clear AI is like, it doesn't matter if you're spending X amount of dollars on the latest and greatest AI tech. If no one knows how to use it, it's a wasted investment. If you also don't have a culture of embracing it, or perhaps you are silent on it and people are just using ChatGPT on their phones at work, like that shadow productivity, that's still risk. So we kind of are just encouraging people to just have a go. Adoption can start at the smallest, tiniest steps, but it does mean you have to bring everyone along for the ride. And so, Miriam's basically shared a case where they've brought people from different areas, like albeit it's local government, it's a bigger enterprise, but they brought people from different areas, and it's not just been like the ICT people who get to like try AI, right? In my view, I do not think, love IT people. Thank you. I always call you when I need help. But it's like, I do think it should be, all the way down from execs through to your comms managers, like your frontline workers. Everyone should learn AI literacy and AI skills. So, I'm just cognizant of time. We've got about 10 minutes. And so this is kind of the philosophical part of AI that I like to talk about. But talking to business leaders and stuff, they say, I'm dealing with so many risks anyway, right? You have, as directors, you have risks of like, that will send you to jail, work health and safety, insolvency, all this kind of stuff. So you have these competing priorities. But let's talk about like you're saying, Miriam, like what are the major risks of not adopting, and can AI help with mitigating all the other risks that keep directors up at night, that keep business leaders up at night? Maybe Josh, Alex, I can throw to you guys.
Yeah, I'm happy. We've just added a whole bunch of entries to our risk registry at Crosslinks, which is a disability service provider that I'm on the board for. And even though our bread and butter is helping people in the community, it's not a tech company, it's not a for-profit, but it is a genuine risk because if we don't provide a mechanism for people to understand how they can leverage the productivity and the benefits in a responsible way, they're going to go behind and do it anyway. And that's study after study for the last 2 years have shown, especially in Australia is particularly bad at this. There is a massive gap between the leaders reporting that they're using AI and the people reporting that they're using AI. And the reason is the leaders aren't endorsing it or providing a stable, reliable mechanism for their employees to use it. And the employees are saying, well, I don't have to do this anymore. I know that ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever it is, can do this for me, and it will save me hours of my time. So they're using it anyway. So the risk from a board perspective, it is massive. And then even just, sorry, I distracted myself, got off topic, and now I'm rambling. What was I did have a good point, I promise. What was the original question?
Well, what are the risks of not adopting? And we can also explore the flip side, which we will turn to, of what are the risks when adopting AI?
I'm going to pass to somebody else until I remember what it was.
Can I just say something on that? So local government, where I am right now, but also state government, there's a massive fear with AI coming to take our jobs. But somebody very clever once said, AI will not take your job. It's somebody using AI that will take it. And that's the culture that we want to put forward. For local government, we don't the Australian, what is it? We're poaching each other's employees, and the reshuffle, the massive reshuffle in employment. How is the AI and productivity being part of the employee value proposition? How about we create an environment when it's so easy to come to work and be your best and be productive that you don't want to leave? What about we put forward a company that is just so good, it is automated and it's just fun, and we can do forecasts and not fail at it, and then people want to come to you. So that would be, that's the type of culture that we want to create, and I think that's where we're going.
But yeah, like there are lots of, Josh, I don't know if you caught the train yet, but awesome. Yep, we'll go to you.
Yeah, it was the risk of not adopting. And so CODIS being a consultancy, we pride ourselves on being able to provide expertise at demand to the clients. And a real telling point, like I've been kind of banging the drums and preaching to the executive team for years now, saying we will be replaced if we don't adopt. And a real selling point, I think, in their minds was, for consultants in the world, we're probably tier 3. We're like going on the level of maybe Capgemini or Cognizant or something like that. XPWC, so kind of tier 2, and then you've got your MBB at the top. And you can probably, maybe rule of thumb, add 50% each tier as you go up to the cost of engaging with that organisation. We got undercut by one of the big 4 by 50%. On a multi-million-dollar proposal. So we proposed 50% over one of the big 4 on the delivery of the software services, which is mind-boggling. This is millions of dollars because they're able to now deliver using AI augmented delivery. So they've got AI developers, testers, this kind of stuff. And that was a real big point for us that we had, at that point, missed the train. It was a significant, profound risk to the entire 50,000 person business. I think we do 4 billion euro in revenue. And the president was like, called an emergency meeting and said, like, if we don't change, our business might not exist in a few years because we can't keep up with 50% cheaper than the services we're offering from more prestigious organisations. So it is a massive risk to not adopt the technology as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's the other side of the coin, right? Like you can save so much money with AI, productivity gains, efficiency, employee well-being, et cetera. But I mean, the same side, like the other side of that coin is like, yeah, there's data regulation, there's privacy, there's cybersecurity. So also, Alex, like I know you're in touch with a lot of what's happening in the Australian regulation space. We're still, I guess, trying to figure it out. So I guess maybe there are businesses and organizations that are worried about if I adopt AI and then we get regulated to the eyeballs, like what is that going to cost me? So yeah, how can we kind of equip leaders with the knowledge and confidence to stay flexible and adaptable, but still embrace AI?
Yeah, I think the regulatory space in Australia is not great in that it's very uncertain, and it reminds me a bit of the energy regulation problems that we had in the last kind of 15, 20 years in Australia, where there was a lot of delays of investment, particularly in the east coast of Australia, in terms of, do we go solar, do we build another coal plant? What do we do? Let's do nothing until we get a clear picture. And then government after government kind of, didn't resolve that issue. And the result was a sort of a failure in people's confidence to invest in that industry. And so you do not want that to happen with AI in Australia. So the government have these things called the voluntary AI standards. And they are out there and they are pretty high level. They are pretty, they're not dictatorial in terms of what they ask you to do. But there's sort of the hint here from them is that, these are the things to look at now, because if we are going to legislate, then this will sort of give you a bit of a head start in terms of being aligned with it. And I wouldn't overthink it at this point. I would use common sense. It's the data sovereignty stuff. Don't collect people's Medicare data and send it to ChatGPT or DeepSeek. I mean, it's not rocket science, right? It is data sovereignty stuff. It's the same kind of problems that existed prior to AI. What's going to be super interesting is when you have AIs that make decisions that impact people's lives. So I already see, and I do not like this application of AI. I'm super pro-positive AI. I'm not sure if you noticed, but there's a few applications that make me a little uneasy, and one is in the recruitment field. So I have seen platforms where people have their initial interviews or screening interviews via a AI service. And I just think, oh my gosh, there are so many ways that could go wrong, and someone could, by some bug in the training software or bug in implementation, turn out that their interview is rated lower than someone else's, or their answers are rated lower than someone else's. And you could go from company to company trying to get a job, and maybe there's one or two of these big recruitment platforms, and you'd turn out getting rejected from a large number of these places, and you wouldn't even know why. And so at the moment, there's not really you don't have a legal sort of recourse to be able to go and say, well, hang on, why did this happen? And what is it about this tool, this decision-making process that has caused me to not be successful? So that's the kind of a future that I don't want to see. And again, I think if you look at the EU AI Act, which I'd encourage you not to read because it's 600 pages of dense legal...
You could get AI to read it.
That's what I do.
Summarize.
I have to answer a lot of questions about what AI legislation might look like. And so I download the EU AI Act, I upload it to a RAG system, Retrieval Augmented Generation, which is how AI reads documents. And I put it in there and I ask questions of it, and I make sure I tell it to give me the sources and cite where in the document it gives me the answers. It's such a refreshing way to interact with it, because there's no way I was going to read 600 pages of this really dry legislation. So, yeah, I think the EU have gone down their very regulatory path. The US has taken a completely different direction. I think that there's some merit in industry-specific regulation where it makes sense. Like if you're a doctor and you want to use some kind of medical AI product, obviously I think that's something where it makes sense for the TGA to be involved, because they have very strict guidelines. I think it would be terrible if the government mandate that you must have all of these incredibly detailed AI guardrails in place regardless of your use of AI, because that will just stifle the use of AI. Like why would you bother? So I would encourage people not to be discouraged from the lack of regulation and use your common sense. Be careful about data sovereignty. Read the fine print in the contracts with your AI providers, or your Azure providers. And the golden rule that I tell people, this is probably not relevant for everyone in this room, simply for the fact that you chose to come to this event, but I have to talk to people who don't want to use AI. And the thing that they don't understand, and that I tell them, is that if you are using a free AI service, then you are probably the product, and that they are harvesting your training and data and your conversations for use. So, I am quietly confident that Australia will come up with something sensible.
Awesome.
Just to very quickly
Yeah.
support, absolutely, unsurprisingly agree with Alex. On the recruitment case, a few years ago, there was found that AI in recruitment, especially in the interview phase, heavily discriminated against neurodivergent individuals. So things that are typically seen as signs of confidence or capability, such as maintaining and prolonged eye contact. I don't know if anybody's been watching me tonight, but I can't do that, and I assure you I'm relatively competent at what I do. So there is an absolute precedence of discrimination against groups that fall outside of that norm in that particular use case.
What's interesting to me, though, is our acceptance of human biases in these areas. How do we stop HR from being biased? How do we stop people from being biased? How do you extract and clear explanations from someone about why they chose this person over another? I mean, humans make these preferences based on like these deep instinctual and fundamental reasons that sometimes aren't even conscious.
Well, I think, on that though, who would be comfortable standing before an AI judge? While it may be less partial, there's actually something that I think we recognize inherently within a human being, which we accept a judgment by a human being. And that's why I think in the HR case, even though we accept some biases, there is a difference because human beings recognize that there is another human being in front of them. They're not just a number, they're not just another sort of thing to tick and flick, but actually there's dignity and worth there. There's a certain value that is ascribed to a human being. And so being judged, for better or for worse by another human being is something that we long for, I would suggest, in preference to a computer.
To counter that, what about these research studies that say, for instance, if you are up for parole and your session is the one just before lunch, you are more likely to be denied. Like there are, even these jobs, there's a sort of a desensitization. If you are judging people day, after day, I think that there are factors that we accept as a society. I mean, we accept doctors making mistakes. We accept doctors, not that we accept them, but we accept, okay, this is the level of kind of risk mitigation that we have.
Human error.
Yeah, we accept human error in our society. And I just wonder if we won't accept AI error because we can't hold someone accountable for it.
Yeah, I think there's truth to that. I think also we ought to look at our practices, our human practices, and say, okay, well, maybe, those who are going out for parole, we create a different process, which kind of eliminates some of those biases which are being recognized.
I would also say to the AI parole officer that I talk about AI a lot, and I'm very pro-AI.
I, for one, welcome and accept our new overlords.
I've talked nicely about you over the years.
Yeah,
I always
awesome.
said please.
Yeah, great. Well, we've kind of hit time and we're going to now get into some use case demonstrations. But to kind of round out the discussion before we thank all of our experts and all of that, a lot of people are worried about AI in the sense of what is it going to do to humanity? What is it going to do existentially, right? And I come from a national security background and I've been looking at AI as a threat for many years now. And so there's definitely, we're watching a geopolitical arms race happening. We're seeing this entire upheaval of jobs rearranging and power transferring between different societal stratas. And so I think they're very valid questions. I would just encourage everyone, like before you even really start digging into those, just familiarize yourself with AI. It does begin with AI literacy and familiarization in order to actually have a say in how governments, in how people who represent us actually get to roll out AI into our lives. The more that you know about it and the more you keep up to date with it, like do not try and keep up with all the AI news. It's like a fire hydrant. But like even just
teams of people that do that for me.
Well, exactly. I mean, ask ChatGPT to give you a daily summary, like whatever it is, like just, yeah, that's right. But like just keeping up to date actually means that you can have an informed choice about how we use AI at an individual level, at a societal level, and maybe at a global level. Anyway, ... Speech bubble gone. Thank you so much to everybody on the expert panel. If you could give a round of applause. Thank you.